Welcome to Ron and
And
Nick's
Best Friend Podcast
the podcast.
that you cannot live without. Who is this?
Fits in the tantrums.
Who?
Fits in the tantrums.
Is there a one-hit wonder or something?
Here it is. You gotta listen. This will make you smile. Here it is.
I feel like working out. This is part of your workout music right here.
It is part of my workout music.
Good morning, Ron. Good to see you this morning. Are we going to do the Bible version today?
Bible study version.
Bible study version.
Is coming up. We have taken several weeks off because of vacations and things like that, and we are now going to get back to the Bible study story.
We're in John chapter 11. The story is about Lazarus and him coming out,
of the grave.
floating out of the grave. If you don't know what we're talking about, you got to go several episodes back.
Yeah.
And we've been doing this for quite a long, one verse at a time.
Yep.
Have you ever done a Bible study with one verse at a time? Well, we do.
Yeah, we do.
And we see
Because
where
we
the Spirit
believe the
leads.
Holy Spirit wrote the Bible because
He loves us,
and He wants to.
have a relationship with us.
So we're trying to take it and read it like the first people who ever wrote it.
Right.
And we know that the verses are put in there, that they're false breaks and things like that. It's just a way to break it down and try to take our time with what the Holy Spirit wrote because we think it's important. He wouldn't have written it if it wasn't important. He loves us. So let's connect with Him in this. I'll start. John chapter 11. We're up to verse 50, but I'm going to start in 45. A little context here. Lazarus is already out of the grave. Thank God he floated out. And now this is what happens in the aftermath of that event. Verse 45, therefore many of the Jews who had come to visit Mary and had seen what Jesus did put their faith in him. But some of them went to the Pharisees and told them what Jesus had done. Then the chief priests and the Pharisees called a meeting of the Sanhedrin, that's the governing body, and they asked, what are we accomplishing? Here is this man performing many miraculous signs. Verse 48, if we let him go on like this, everyone will believe in him, and then the Romans will come and take away both our place and our nation, because they're occupied by Rome. They're an occupied nation. Verse 49, then one of them named Caiaphas, who was high priest that year, spoke up, you know nothing at all. Verse 50, this is our verse. You do not realize that it is better for you that one man die for the people than that the whole nation perish. Verse 50, you do not realize that it is better for you that one man die for the people than the whole nation perish. All right, Holy Spirit, show us what you wanted us to see when you wrote this. We trust you. We love you. We thank you for writing it down for us. Wow. 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 Okay, so Caiaphas is the leader of the governing body for this year. He's the high priest. We've said in a couple episodes before in Bible study, this is the Jewish nation is a theocracy. So it is run by these people who are all the legal experts, which would have been the Old Testament law. They would be basically like our Senate, I guess, with senators and these priests, the Sanhedrin, the scribes and the lawyers and the priests all gathered, and they gave rulings about the law that ruled Jewish people and Jewish life. And this is the leader of that. So it would be like the president of the Senate speaking up. So what did the Holy Spirit put his finger on?
Well, this is what I'm seeing right now. Have you ever heard a leader that spoke and sounded so wise and he was so wrong? I'm looking at this and it sounds really beautiful. That one man die, then a whole nation perish. Wow, yeah, man, you're right about that, dude. I totally agree. We can't have a nation perish. We have to sacrifice it. This guy was so off. He's 180. If you could have more than 180 degrees, 360 degrees, whatever. He's so off on what he's saying. But it sounded good. You could convince a lot of people with that.
Hmm.
You're talking to a body of people that don't know who Jesus is. I suspect he's saying we got to put him down. Is that what he's saying?
That's exactly what he's saying.
Okay.
I told you when Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead, he signed his death warrant. Like it was like that was it. They had been thinking about killing him. They'd been planning to kill him, but when that happened, it was like, nope. Okay, now we've got to do something because this is
We're going to lose our
ridiculous.
nation. We got to get this guy down. We got to put him down. And you know what? It sounds good. We got to sacrifice one because we're going to lose a nation.
Of course.
I'm with you, bro.
Yeah.
I listen. You're very wise. What's his name? Caiaphas.
Caiaphas.
Oh, you're very wise, Caiaphas. Now I understand why you're the lead priest here, high priest. I got it, man. Yeah, you're right. We have to. We're going to lose our nation. Gosh. That's the. I wonder. I guess he's. I've never thought about this. I guess he's the spark of this whole thing. Correct? Did it start with him?
With who?
With Caiaphas?
You mean
The process of how we're going to get. No.
I told you. This has been going on. Like as Jesus gains and gains in notoriety, and people begin to gravitate towards him. This movement is building, and it's disruptive. It's a disruptive movement. The establishment is we're the people. We're the good people. Look. This is not a political statement. We live in there is no nation that isn't political. Our nation is political, and there are politicians who believe that they are the guardians of the nation, and they have serious disagreements with each other. I mean, they have really big disagreements about what is best for America, where the United States is going, what kind of nation we should be. And they're duking it out and fighting it out, right? In our political system, that's what's going on.
Well, he is duking it out here because he says you know nothing at all, and then he says you do not realize. So there's probably a counter to what he's saying. He's arguing his point.
Well, right. I've said this. That there are a lot of these people who are going to be converted.
Right.
That comes out in the book of Acts. That lots of the priests became faithful, became converted to the faith. So there's a lot of question about this. And there are people who are believers, like they believe that Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead, and they can't account for it in their religious worldview. In Judaism, they can't account for it other than Jesus must be from God. And then you have others who are like, well, he has to be a liar because he heals on the Sabbath, and he hangs around with some really questionable people, harlots and drunkards and tax collectors and things. And so there's a big question, like, how could this guy be from God?
And he also, what's the other one? What was the Satan guy that you said he could be from Satan? You gave a name.
He could be from Satan.
Yeah, he could be Satan doing that. The power of Satan to raise him up. You gave a name.
Beelzebub?
Yeah, what was that?
Beelzebub?
Yeah, what is that?
Beelzebub is another name for the devil.
Okay.
But there's a place where they accuse him of getting his power. There's nobody's named in there, and
Okay.
that I remember. But so there's all kinds of one of them is here's the thing. He's from God. He's from the devil. He's just a man. C.S. Lewis says something about that. Like Jesus doesn't leave any options open to you. This is what C.S. Lewis says. Jesus himself puts it out there and says, no man comes to the Father but by me. He said, a man that would say something like that is either the devil of hell, or he's a lunatic, or he's God. And so he doesn't leave the option open. There it is. He's not just a good man, not just doing good things. And these people are being forced into that corner. And this guy, who's a politician, and look, he's right. He's right about this. If Jesus keeps gaining a following that is outside the structure, the political structure, it is at some point going to get big enough where it overwhelms the Jewish structure, and then the Romans are going to get involved because the Romans are propping up this little, they're allowing them to govern themselves. If they prove they can't govern themselves, the Romans are more than happy to come in, and they'll shed a lot of blood. And he's right about this. Caiaphas is right about this. If they don't kill Jesus, and Jesus keeps going, and he reaches critical mass, the Romans will kill a lot of them. They might kill the entire nation. Romans are bloodthirsty, and all they want is peace. And if they get it through shedding a lot of blood, they'll do it, and they've done it. There's a revolt, the Maccabean revolt, that happens years before this, and Rome comes in and just slaughters a bunch of people. So they have history here. They have a little, He is speaking as the high priest. He's also speaking as a political leader who knows the history of the situation. Listen, go back to the Revolutionary War. There was a point where in America you have to say, hey, listen, if you guys don't stop talking about revolution and freedom and democracy, King, whatever his name, King George, I guess, is going to come over here with his army, which is the best trained army in the world, and they're going to kill all of us. They're going to kill all of us. It's not unlike that.
Yeah, very good point there. Good point.
So, but I'm going to ask you a question. Is there any of it that rings true to you, like rings true in your spirit? It's better for one man to die than for the nation than for all of them to die, for everyone to die. Is there anything about that that rings true to you? We know who Jesus is.
Right. Yeah.
But here's the thing.
Well,
there's nobody who knows. Nobody but Jesus knows, even though he started to tell people about this, that his mission is to die.
Yeah. Well, if you flip it, he's actually telling what's getting ready to happen.
Right. But he's
got
got
the nation.
He's got the right conclusion from a complete wrong angle,
That's
right?
really good. That's good. Yeah, I see that. That's good.
Right.
You could be so wrong, but you could be so right at the same time.
Right. Where I come from, They say a blind squirrel will find an acorn once in a while. And that's true. A blind squirrel will find an acorn once in a while. And this dude is as blind as they come. What else do you see?
How knowing who Jesus is flips everything upside down.
Mm.
If he knew who he was and knew the plan,
what would he do?
That statement is so true.
It also points to me like the nature of how God is doing what he's doing without respect of what men think he ought to be doing. And I'm not just talking about Jesus. I'm talking about God the Father. Like these men believe that the system that they are running is God's system.
Oh.
They believe Judaism is God's, I guess you would call it religion. When they look out in the world, they go, we're right, everybody else is wrong. We have the one true God. And they did. But I heard somebody say not long ago, and I had to think about this, that Judaism is not the religion of the Old Testament. That Judaism is a creation of men. And the more I thought about that, the more I went, you know what? That is true. That is true. This thing that Jesus comes into, the religious system that he walks into, and all the hierarchy and the way that the priests work and the way that the synagogues work and the rules about this and the rules about that, this is not what God had intended. It's
Right.
not even what God had set up. This was men taking stuff of God and shaking it up and putting it in their order and saying, this is the way it works. And I want to make a statement that's pretty controversial, I would guess. It depends. I am not convinced that Christianity isn't the same thing. That Christianity, as we know it, is not the religion of the New Testament.
Yeah, well, I can see that, of course.
That it has been made into,
Yes.
Here's what we take. We take these things. I said last hour, go. If you want to see how this works, go watch that thing on the Duggars. You got to watch that. Go watch Shiny Happy People on Prime. It's a story. It's a documentary about the Duggars and about Bob Gothard and how how it starts out. It is so sad, man. It is so sad. And I'm not trying to make anybody into a wicked, evil, bad guy. It's not about that for me. But it is about this. If you take Christianity, if you take the Bible and what God has said, and you take the Holy Spirit away from that, and now you just have what is written down without the author, you have something that's potentially super wicked, super, super destructive. And if you want to see it play out, go watch that documentary. Like, it is the sickness of it. And it happens over and over again. The Way Down workshop thing is the same thing. Starts out with something that's written in the Bible, and you go, well, isn't this the way? Isn't this what God meant? Well, I don't know. Are you eating off the tree of the knowledge of good and evil while you read the Bible? Are you looking for this is good, this is bad? Then I think that's what you'll eat. But if you're looking for life, and that's the way we read this book, I'm looking for life. I want to get connected to the Holy Spirit. I want to know him. I want to hear him. I don't want to just read these words. Yeah. I want him to fill it up and go, hey, let's get excited about it. Look what I'm saying here. Look what I'm teaching here. It's completely different. It's completely different. The Holy Spirit changes everything. Knowing who Jesus is, which is where you started out, changes everything, right? If Caiaphas knew who Jesus was, what would he have done? Well, I don't know that it's that fair to Caiaphas, because the people who are hanging around with Jesus still don't know that he's God.
Yeah, we've always talked about.
Well, sometimes they do.
A break.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cut him a break. Now, was Caiaphas, wicked? He's no more wicked than any other man. He's no more wicked than any other politician trying to keep power. And he actually thinks, he actually thinks that he sees more clearly than everybody else. And religious people always do.
I wonder.
Religious people always think they see more clearly than everybody else in the room. They do. And you've been around them, and I've been around them, and they're horrible people to be around. They're really not gracious.
Okay, good point. Here's the thing. I'm thinking about the other Pharisees that had come to conclusion of knowing who Jesus was, and they're hearing this from Caiaphas. Okay, I wonder what happens. I mean, they have a fork in the road here. Could you imagine hearing him say that? You understanding who he is. I'd love to know what they were thinking. Is there areas in the Bible? I know there is, but not in this part where they're just apparently there's an argument going on, because he says you don't know what you're talking about.
Well, at the end, what's going to happen at the end of the story, right? We know for sure about at least one guy.
Right.
We know about Nicodemus.
Right.
Because Nicodemus is going to risk his life and his reputation and everything after the crucifixion, which he kind of disappears into the story. You don't know what he's doing when this is going on. I don't think there's any doubt that Nicodemus has got to be here.
Right.
I'm fairly certain he has to be. But at the end of the story, he's the guy who goes, hey, give me Jesus' body. He takes him and Joseph of Arimathea, and they go get Jesus' body, and they anoint him, and they wrap him, and they do all the the Jewish rites over him. And so there's at least one guy who's got serious questions about what's going on here, and he's had an interaction with God way back in John chapter 3, where Jesus has said, hey, you must be born again. And I'm sure, just like everybody else who comes up against that, like, exactly what do you mean? Look, nothing makes sense in this story until you know who Jesus is. I don't want to hammer these people too hard, because how long did it take you to figure out who Jesus is? How long did it take me to figure out who Jesus is? Do you really want to say, well, I know everything about Jesus now?
No.
Like, the only thing I know about Jesus is what the Holy Spirit has taught me. And there's a lot left to learn.